Every night at 3 a.m., my parents came into my room. I know that sounds terrifying, and it was, but not in the way you might think. They didn't hurt me. They didn't touch me inappropriately. They didn't scream or threaten or do anything that would leave visible scars. They just stood there, at the foot of my bed, eyes closed, whispering, words I couldn't understand. In a language I'd never heard, sounds that seemed to come from somewhere deep inside them, somewhere ancient, somewhere that had nothing to do with the parents I knew during the day. My father would hold something in his hands, sometimes a candle, sometimes a small pouch filled with things I couldn't see. My mother would trace patterns in the air above my body, circles, lines, symbols that meant nothing to me but clearly meant everything to them. And then, after exactly 13 minutes I counted, every single night I counted they would leave. Quietly, as if they had never been there at all. I was 4 years old the first time I woke up and saw them. I pretended to be asleep. Something told me I should. Something told me that if they knew I was watching, everything would change. So I kept my eyes almost closed, breathed slowly, watched through my eyelashes, and I didn't say a word. Not that night. Not the next night. Not for 18 years. For 18 years, my parents performed some kind of ritual over my sleeping body, and I never asked them why. I never screamed. I never ran. I just lay there, pretending to sleep, counting to 13 minutes, waiting for it to end. Why didn't I say anything? Because I was terrified. Not of them. Of the answer. What if they told me I was dying? What if they told me I was possessed? What if they told me something so terrible that I couldn't unhear it? So I chose not to know. For 18 years. And then I turned 25, and my mother got sick. And she finally told me the truth. What she said that night in the hospital changed everything I thought I knew about my family, about myself, about the sister I never knew I had. Before I tell you what happened, I need you to do something. Hit that subscribe button right now, because this story is unlike anything I've ever told. And I need to know you're with me. Drop your country and what time it is where you are. I want to know who's staying up late with me tonight. And one more thing, type 3 a.m. in the comments if you've ever woken up at that time for no reason. Because after you hear this story, you might understand why. Now let me take you back to the beginning, to a small town in Vermont, to a house at the end of a dirt road, and to a little girl who learned very early that some questions are too dangerous to ask. I was born on October 31st, 1996, Halloween. My mother used to joke about it. You came into this world on the night when the veil between worlds is thinnest, she'd say. That's why you're so special. I never knew what she meant by that. I assumed it was just something mothers say to make their children feel unique. But looking back now, I realize she wasn't joking. She believed it, every word. We lived in Hollow Creek, Vermont. Population 847. The kind of town where everyone knows everyone, where the church bells ring every Sunday at exactly 10 a.m., and where people still believe in things that cities forgot long ago. Our house was at the end of Miller Road, a 2-story colonial that my great-great-grandfather built in 1892. White paint that was always peeling, black shutters that creaked in the wind, a wraparound porch where my mother would sit and stare at nothing for hours. Behind the house was a forest, dense, dark, endless. I wasn't allowed to go in there, ever. That was the first rule I learned in my life, before don't touch the stove, or look both ways before crossing the street. Never go into those woods, Lily, promise me. Why, Mommy? Because some places aren't meant for children. Some places have memories that don't want to be disturbed. I was 3 when she told me that. I didn't understand. But I obeyed. My mother, Catherine Morgan, was beautiful in a way that made people uncomfortable. Pale skin, almost translucent, long black hair that she never cut. Eyes so light blue they sometimes looked white. She moved slowly, deliberately, like she was always listening for something no one else could hear. She didn't work. She didn't have friends. She didn't leave the house except to buy groceries once a week. She just existed, in that house, with me. My father, Thomas Morgan, was the opposite. Loud, friendly, always smiling. He worked at the lumber mill in town, coached Little League on Saturdays. Everyone in Hollow Creek loved Tom Morgan, but at night, he changed. At night, when the sun went down and the darkness crept in through the windows, my father became someone else. Quiet, serious. His smile disappeared. His eyes grew distant. And at 3 a.m., he and my mother would come to my room. Let me tell you about the first time I saw them. I was 4 years old. I'd woken up because I had to go to the bathroom. But when I opened my eyes, I saw shadows at the foot of my bed. 2 figures, standing perfectly still. I almost screamed, but something stopped me. Something made me close my eyes again and peek through the tiny slits, the way children do when they're pretending to sleep. It was my parents. My father was holding a white candle. The flame didn't flicker. It just burned, steady and bright, casting strange shadows on the walls. My mother had her hands raised above my body. She was moving them in slow circles, tracing shapes I didn't recognize, and they were both whispering. At first, I thought they were speaking English, but as I listened harder, I realized I couldn't understand a single word. It wasn't any language I knew. It wasn't even any language that sounded real. It was like they were speaking to something that wasn't there, pleading with it, bargaining with it, begging. I was so scared I thought I might wet the bed, but I didn't move. I didn't breathe too loudly. I just lay there, frozen, counting the seconds until it was over. After 13 minutes, exactly 13 minutes, they stopped. My mother leaned down and kissed my forehead. Her lips were ice cold. "We're keeping you safe, my love," she whispered. "We'll always keep you safe." Then they left, closed the door behind them, and I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. The next morning, I waited for them to say something, to explain, to acknowledge what had happened. They didn't. My father made pancakes, like he always did on Saturday mornings. My mother braided my hair and sang songs from musicals. Everything was normal, perfect, even. It was like 3 a.m. had never happened. I almost convinced myself that I'd dreamed it, that my imagination had created some kind of nightmare, and I'd confused it with reality. But then it happened again, the next night, same time. 3 a.m., and the night after that, and every night for the next 18 years. I need to pause here, because I know what you're thinking. Why didn't you say something? Why didn't you ask them? Why didn't you tell someone? I've asked myself those questions 1,000 times, and the truth is, I don't have a good answer. Part of it was fear. I was terrified of what they might tell me. What if I was sick? What if I was dying? What if there was something wrong with me that they were trying to fix? Part of it was normalcy. When something happens every single night, it stops feeling strange. It becomes routine. It becomes just another part of life, like brushing your teeth or saying goodnight. And part of it was love. I loved my parents. Despite everything, despite the strangeness, despite the secrets, I loved them. And I didn't want to do anything that might make them stop loving me. So I stayed silent. I pretended to sleep. And I counted to 13 minutes every single night, wondering what it all meant. Type, "I understand," in the comments if you've ever kept a secret because you were afraid of the answer. Because that's what I did. For 18 years. Let me tell you about growing up in that house. During the day, my childhood was almost normal. Almost. I went to school, I made friends. I learned to read and write and do math just like every other kid in Hollow Creek. But there were rules in our house. Rules that other families didn't have. Rule number 1, never go into the woods. I've already told you about that one. But let me tell you how seriously my parents took it. When I was 7, my friend Madison dared me to step past the tree line. Just one step. Just to prove I wasn't scared. I did it, 1 foot in the forest. Just for a second. That night, my mother came into my room not at 3 a.m., but at 8 p.m. Right after dinner. "You went into the woods today. It wasn't a question. How did you—" "I know everything that happens to you, Lily. Everything. The woods are not safe. They never have been. If you go in there again, I can't protect you. Protect me from what? She didn't answer. She just looked at me with those pale eyes, and I saw something I'd never seen in my mother before. Terror. Pure, absolute terror. I never went near those woods again. Rule number 2. Never speak about the nighttime rituals. I didn't need to be told this one. I understood it instinctively. Whatever happened at 3 a.m. was private, sacred, even. It belonged to my family and no one else. But when I was 10, I almost broke this rule. We were having a sleepover at Madison's house. 4 girls, up way past midnight, telling scary stories and eating too much candy. I heard that Lily's house is haunted, said Sarah, a girl I didn't like very much. My mom says there's something wrong with that family. She says your mom is a witch. Everyone laughed, but I didn't. She's not a witch. Then why does she never leave the house? Why does she always look like she's listening to voices? My mom says, your mom doesn't know anything. I wanted to tell them. God, I wanted to tell them so badly. I wanted to say, every night at 3 a.m., my parents perform rituals over my bed, and I don't know why. I wanted someone else to tell me it was strange. I wanted validation. I wanted help, but I couldn't. The words wouldn't come out. Because deep down, I knew that if I spoke about it, something bad would happen. I didn't know what, but I felt it in my bones. So I stayed silent. I laughed along with everyone else. I pretended Sarah was crazy, and I went home the next morning to parents who loved me and whispered over me every night. Rule number 3. Never open the door to Grandma's room. At the end of the upstairs hallway, there was a door that was always locked. That was your grandmother's room. My mother told me when I was 6. She passed away before you were born. We keep it closed out of respect. Can I see inside? No. Why not? Because some things belong to the dead, Lily, and we don't disturb the dead. I accepted that explanation when I was 6, but as I got older, I started to wonder, why keep a room locked for years? Why not clean it out, donate the furniture, move on? Once, when I was 13, I tried the door, just to see if it would open. It didn't. It was locked tight. And the moment I touched the doorknob, a chill ran through my body so intense that I stumbled backward and nearly fell down the stairs. I never touched that door again, not until after my mother told me the truth. Let me tell you about my teenage years. By the time I was 15, I had developed a system. Every night at 2:55 a.m., I would wake up naturally. My body had been trained, after more than a decade, to anticipate what was coming. I would close my eyes, slow my breathing, relax every muscle in my body. At 3 a.m. exactly, my door would open. My parents would enter. They would take their positions, my father at the foot of the bed, my mother at my side. The whispering would begin. I would count, 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3. Sometimes I tried to understand the words. I would focus on individual sounds, trying to detect patterns, trying to match them to languages I'd learned about in school. Latin? No. Greek? No. Something older. Something that didn't come from any textbook. By minute 7, my mother would begin tracing shapes. By minute 10, my father would lower the candle toward my body. By minute 12, the whispering would intensify, faster, more urgent, as if they were racing against a deadline. And then, at minute 13, silence, a kiss on my forehead. Cold as winter. We're keeping you safe, my love. And they would leave. When I was 16, something changed. I woke up one night, not at 3 a.m., but at 2 a.m., an hour early. I wasn't sure why. Maybe I'd had a nightmare. Maybe I'd heard a noise. I lay there in the dark, waiting. And then I heard voices. Not from my room, from downstairs. My parents were arguing. This was unusual. My parents never argued. They disagreed sometimes, like all couples do, but I'd never heard them raise their voices. Tonight was different. I crept out of bed and tiptoed to the top of the stairs. I could see the kitchen light on. I could hear my mother's voice, high and panicked. It's not working, Thomas. I can feel it. Something's different. We do the ritual exactly the same way every night. Nothing has changed. But she has changed. She's getting older, stronger. What if, don't say it, what if she's becoming what we feared? Silence. My heart was pounding so loud I was sure they could hear it. We do the ritual, my father said finally. His voice was hard, cold. We do it every night until she's 25. That's what your mother said. That's what we promised. But my mother didn't know everything. She was guessing. She was. She was right about everything else, wasn't she? She knew about the twin. She knew about the curse. She knew what would happen if we didn't protect her. Twin? Curse? What were they talking about? I'm scared, Thomas. I know. I am too. But we have to keep going. For Lily. We have to save her, even if she never knows what we saved her from. I heard footsteps moving toward the stairs. I scrambled back to my room as quietly as I could, threw myself into bed, pulled the covers up. My door opened at 3 a.m., just like always. The ritual happened, just like always. But nothing would ever feel the same again. I need to pause here. Type twin in the comments if you caught that. Because I caught it, and I never forgot it. A twin. I had a twin. Or I was supposed to have a twin. Or something happened to a twin. I didn't know what it meant, but I knew it was important. I knew it was the key to everything. But I was too scared to ask. Still, even then, what does that say about me? I heard my parents talking about a twin, a curse, saving me from something terrible, and I still didn't confront them. Maybe I was a coward. Maybe I was in denial. Maybe I just wasn't ready to know the truth. Whatever the reason, I kept silent for 9 more years. 9 more years of rituals. 9 more years of counting to 13. 9 more years of wondering what I was being saved from. And then I turned 25, and everything changed. At 18, I left for college. The night before I moved into my dorm at Portland State University, 3,000 miles away from Vermont, my parents sat me down in the living room. My mother was crying. My father looked like he'd aged 10 years overnight. "Lily, there's something you need to know," my mother said. Finally, I thought. Finally, they're going to tell me. While you're at school, you need to be very careful, especially at night. Don't stay out past midnight if you can help it. Don't go to parties where you don't know anyone. Don't, "Mom, I'm going to college, not a war zone. You don't understand. The hours between midnight and sunrise are dangerous for you. More dangerous than for other people." "Why?" She looked at my father. He shook his head. "Just trust us," she said. "Please, follow these rules, and everything will be fine. What about the nighttime thing?" Both of them froze. "What nighttime thing?" my father asked. His voice was too casual, too controlled. I almost said it. I almost told them I'd been awake the whole time, every night, for 18 years. But something stopped me, the same something that had always stopped me. "Nothing," I said. "Never mind." My mother let out a breath she'd been holding. "We love you, Lily. Everything we've ever done has been to protect you. Remember that." I left for college the next day, and for the first time in 18 years, I slept through the night without waking up at 3 a.m. College was freedom, no locked doors, no mysterious rules, no parents whispering over my bed in the middle of the night. I made friends. I went to parties. I stayed out past midnight, way past midnight, and nothing happened. No curses, no doom, just hangovers and regret, like every other college student. I started to wonder if my childhood had been a fever dream. If my parents were just eccentric, superstitious people who believed in things that weren't real. I studied graphic design. I fell in love with a boy named Ethan who had kind eyes and a terrible sense of humor. I got an internship at a design firm downtown. For 7 years, I lived a normal life. I visited my parents twice a year, Christmas and a week in the summer. During those visits, I noticed changes. My mother was getting thinner, paler. Her light blue eyes seemed to sink deeper into her skull each time I saw her. My father had stopped coaching Little League. He rarely left the house anymore. He just sat on the porch, staring at the woods behind our property. The rituals had stopped, as far as I could tell. I stayed up past 3 a.m. during my visits, pretending to read in my room, and no one came to my door. Maybe they only did it when I was a child, I thought. Maybe they stopped when I turned 18. I was relieved. But I was also, strangely, a little sad. Because as creepy as those rituals were, they were also proof that my parents loved me. Proof that they cared enough to do something, even something strange, every single night. What did it mean that they'd stopped? 2 weeks before my 25th birthday, my father called. "Lily, you need to come home." "Dad, what's wrong?" "It's your mother. She's sick. Very sick. The doctors don't know how much time she has." I was on a plane the next morning. My mother was in the hospital in Burlington, an hour away from Hollow Creek. By the time I got there, she looked like a ghost. Skin so thin you could see the veins underneath. Eyes cloudy and unfocused. But when I walked into her room, she grabbed my hand with surprising strength. "Lily, my Lily, you came." "Of course I came, Mom." "I'm here. I need to tell you something. Something I should have told you years ago, but I was scared. I thought if you knew, you'd hate us. You'd think we were crazy." "Mom, don't. Save your strength." "No, I'm running out of time. And you need to know the truth before your 25th birthday." My father stepped forward. "Catherine, are you sure?" "She has to know, Thomas. The ritual is over. We did everything we could. Now she needs to understand why." I sat down on the edge of her bed, my heart pounding. "Tell me." "This is what my mother told me. You weren't supposed to be alone, Lily. You were supposed to have a sister, a twin, identical. We were going to name her Rose." My breath caught in my throat. "But Rose didn't survive. She died in the womb, 3 weeks before you were born. The doctors said these things happen sometimes. One twin absorbs the other, or the placenta fails, or something just goes wrong." She paused, tears streaming down her face. "But my mother, your grandmother, she said it was more than that. She said Rose didn't just die. She said Rose's spirit stayed with you, inside you. And if we didn't protect you, if we didn't perform the ritual every night until you turned 25, Rose would." "Would what?" "Would take over. Would consume you from the inside. Would erase Lily and become Rose." I stared at her. I couldn't speak. I know how this sounds. Believe me, I know. When my mother first told me, I thought she was insane. But then strange things started happening. You would wake up in the middle of the night screaming in a voice that wasn't yours. You would draw pictures of a girl who looked exactly like you but with different eyes. You would say things you couldn't possibly know, things about my childhood, about your grandmother's past, about events that happened before you were born. I don't remember any of that. Because the ritual worked. It kept Rose quiet. It kept her from getting stronger. It gave you the chance to grow up as yourself, as Lily, without being overshadowed by your sister's spirit. My mother squeezed my hand. The ritual had to last until you turned 25. That's what my mother said. After 25, your soul would be strong enough to stand on its own. Rose wouldn't be able to take over anymore. She would fade. She would finally rest. So the ritual is over? Because I'm almost 25? Yes, it's over. We did everything we were supposed to do. You're safe now, Lily. You'll always be safe. She smiled, a weak, exhausted smile. I'm sorry I never told you. I'm sorry we kept this secret for so long. But I couldn't risk you knowing. I couldn't risk you being afraid of yourself. I didn't know what to say. My mind was spinning. A twin sister, a spirit, a ritual to protect me. It sounded insane. It sounded like something from a horror movie. But it also explained everything. The midnight whispers, the cold kisses, the locked door to my grandmother's room, the terror in my mother's eyes when I stepped into the woods. It all made sense now. Terrible, impossible sense. My mother died 3 days later. I was holding her hand when she took her last breath. My father was on her other side, crying silently. Her final words were, "Take care of Rose. She's at peace now. But she still needs you." I didn't understand what she meant, not until the funeral. We held the funeral in Hollow Creek, in the church where my parents were married. The whole town came. Everyone had a story about Catherine Morgan, the quiet woman who never left her house but always baked cookies for the neighborhood children, who never missed a Sunday service but always sat in the back row, who never spoke much but always listened. I sat in the front pew, numb, staring at the casket. A twin sister, Rose. I'd spent 25 years not knowing I was supposed to have a sister, not knowing that she was inside me somehow, not knowing that my parents performed rituals every night to keep her from erasing me. It sounded crazy. It sounded impossible. But I couldn't stop thinking about my mother's final words, "Take care of Rose." What did that mean? How do you take care of a sister who died before she was born? After the funeral, after the guests had gone home and the casseroles had been stacked in the refrigerator, I found my father sitting alone in the living room. "Dad, I need to see Grandma's room." He looked up at me with tired eyes. "Your mother never wanted you to go in there. Mom's gone, Dad, and she told me the truth about Rose, about everything. If there's more I need to know, it's in that room, isn't it?" He was quiet for a long time. "Your grandmother left instructions," he finally said. "She said that after your 25th birthday, if you wanted to know the full truth, we should let you see the room. She said by then, it would be safe. My birthday is in 2 days." "I know." He reached into his pocket and pulled out an old brass key. "I've been carrying this for 28 years, waiting for this moment, hoping it would never come." He placed the key in my hand. "Whatever you find in there, Lily, remember that we did everything out of love. Everything." I didn't open the door that night. I couldn't. I needed time to prepare myself. Time to accept that whatever I found would change my understanding of my family forever. I spent the next 2 days in a fog. I helped my father answer sympathy cards. I sorted through my mother's things. I walked around the house, touching the walls, remembering my childhood. And I thought about Rose, my twin sister, the girl who should have grown up beside me. Who should have shared my birthday, my clothes, my secrets? Who should have been my best friend? Instead, she was a spirit, a presence, something my parents spent 25 years protecting me from. Was she evil? Was she dangerous? Or was she just lost? I didn't know, but I was about to find out. On October 31st, my 25th birthday, Halloween, I unlocked my grandmother's door. The room was exactly as I'd imagined it, and nothing like I'd expected. It was small, painted pale pink. 2 windows, both covered with heavy curtains that blocked out the light, and in the center of the room, pushed against the far wall, were 2 cribs. 2. Not 1, 2. One was empty. The other was filled with something I couldn't see from the doorway. I stepped inside, my heart pounding. The empty crib had a name carved into the headboard, Lily. The other crib's headboard read, Rose. I approached Rose's crib slowly, as if moving too fast might disturb something. Inside the crib was a blanket, pink like the walls. And wrapped in the blanket was a doll. No, not a doll, a memorial. It was a small ceramic figure, about the size of a newborn baby. A little girl with closed eyes and peaceful expression. Around her neck was a silver chain with a tiny pendant half of a heart. I reached up and touched my own neck, where I'd worn a necklace since childhood. A necklace my mother gave me on my 5th birthday. A silver chain with a tiny pendant, half of a heart, the other half. I didn't even realize I was crying until the tears dripped onto my hands. I spent hours in that room. I found journals, my grandmother's journals, stacked in a dresser drawer. Decades of entries, dating back to before my mother was born. I found photographs, my mother as a child, my grandmother as a young woman, and ultrasound images, grainy and old, showing 2 babies curled together in the womb. I found letters. Letters my grandmother had written to Rose. To the granddaughter who never took a breath. My darling Rose, I know you never got to see this world, but your sister is here. She carries you with her always. And one day, when she's ready, she'll understand. She'll know that she was never alone, that you were with her all along, not as a curse, not as a danger, but as a protector, as a guardian, as a sister who loved her from the other side. A protector? That wasn't what my mother had said. My mother said the ritual was to protect Me from Rose, to stop Rose from taking over. But my grandmother's letters told a different story. They said the ritual was to protect Rose, to give her a place to rest, to keep her spirit anchored to this world until I was old enough to understand. Which version was true? At the bottom of the dresser, I found one final letter. This one was addressed to me. My dearest Lily, if you're reading this, you've turned 25. The ritual is over. And it's time for you to know the whole truth. Your sister Rose did not die because something was wrong with her. She died because she chose to. She gave her life force to you, in the womb, because you were sick. You were weak. The doctors said you wouldn't survive to birth, but Rose was strong. And she made a choice that no one should ever have to make. She let go of her chance at life so that you could live. That's not a curse, Lily. That's love. The purest love there is. The ritual your parents performed every night wasn't to protect you from Rose. It was to thank her, to honor her, to let her know that she wasn't forgotten. Every whisper was a prayer. Every candle was a tribute. Every symbol your mother traced was a letter in an ancient language that means one thing. We remember you. We love you. We will never let you go. Rose is not inside you waiting to take over. Rose is inside you because that's where she belongs. She is part of you. She always has been. And now that you know the truth, she can finally be at peace. Take care of your sister, Lily. Not by fighting her, by loving her, by carrying her with you into the world she never got to see. You are not one daughter, you are two. And together, you are unstoppable. With all my love, your grandmother I sat on the floor of that pink room for a very long time. The sun set, the room grew dark. And still I sat there, holding my grandmother's letter, crying until I had no tears left. Everything I thought I knew was wrong. Rose wasn't a threat. She wasn't a curse. She was a gift. My twin sister sacrificed herself so that I could live. And my parents spent 25 years honoring that sacrifice every single night. While I pretended to sleep and wondered what they were doing, I wasn't being protected from Rose. I was being taught to carry her. I need to pause here. Type Rose in the comments if this hit you the way it hit me, because I'm still not over it. I don't think I'll ever be over it. A sister I never knew. A sacrifice I couldn't repay. A love that existed before I took my first breath. And parents who kept it secret for 25 years because they didn't know how to explain it. I want to be angry at them. Part of me is, they should have told me. I deserved to know. But another part of me understands why they didn't. How do you tell a child that her sister died so she could live? How do you explain that kind of love without also explaining that kind of loss? My parents did the best they could. They protected me in the only way they knew how, with rituals and candles and whispered prayers. And now, finally, I understand. After I finished reading my grandmother's letter, I left the pink room. I walked downstairs, past my father sleeping on the couch, past the kitchen where my mother would never cook again. I walked to the back door, and I stepped outside. The woods were waiting. For 25 years, I had been forbidden from entering those trees. For 25 years, I had obeyed. I had never questioned why, but now I understood. My grandmother's journals explained it. The woods behind our house weren't just trees. They were sacred ground. A place where my grandmother had performed the first ritual on the night my mother was born. A place where generations of women in our family had gone to speak with the dead. And somewhere in those woods, there was a grave. Rose's grave. My parents had buried her there, secretly, on the night I was born. They had created a marker, a small stone with her name, and they had visited it every year on our birthday. I had never known, but I knew now. I walked into the woods. The darkness was complete. No moonlight penetrated the canopy, but somehow I could see. Somehow I knew where to go. It was like something was guiding me, something that had been waiting for this moment for 25 years. I walked for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. The trees grew thicker, The air grew colder, and then I saw it. A clearing, small, circular. And in the center, a stone. Rose Morgan, the 31st of October 1996, beloved sister, forever remembered. Never forgotten. I fell to my knees in front of that stone. Rose. The name felt strange on my lips. I had never spoken it before. I had never even known it. Rose, I'm here. I'm finally here. The wind picked up. The trees swayed. And for a moment, just a moment, I could have sworn I felt something brush against my cheek. A hand, cold but gentle. A touch that said, I know. I've been waiting. I talked to Rose that night, for hours. I told her about my childhood, about the rituals I pretended not to see, about the questions I was too afraid to ask. I told her about college, about Ethan, who I'd broken up with 2 years ago, about my job, my apartment, my life in Portland. I told her about our mother's death, about the letter from our grandmother, about finally understanding the truth. And I told her I was sorry. I'm sorry I didn't know you. I'm sorry you had to give up everything so I could be here. I'm sorry our parents kept you a secret. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. The wind died down, the forest grew still, and in the silence, I heard something, not a voice. More like a feeling, a warmth spreading through my chest. Forgiveness. Rose forgave me. She had never blamed me. She had never resented me. She had chosen to save me, and she would make that choice again in a heartbeat. That's what sisters do. I stayed in the clearing until sunrise. When the first light broke through the trees, I felt different, lighter. Like a weight I'd been carrying my whole life had finally been lifted. I wasn't alone anymore. I never had been. Rose was with me. She always would be. I walked back to the house as the sun rose. My father was awake, standing on the back porch. Looking at the tree line. You went into the woods. Yes. You found her. Yes. He nodded slowly. Your mother wanted to be the one to take you. She planned it for your 25th birthday. She was going to tell you everything and then bring you to Rose's grave. But she ran out of time. Yes. I walked up the porch steps and wrapped my arms around my father. He stiffened at first. He had never been good at hugs, but then he softened. His arms came around me, and we stood there, holding each other, grieving together. I'm sorry we kept secrets, Lily. Your mother thought it was for the best. She was so scared of losing you. Scared that if you knew about Rose, you'd be afraid, or angry, or, I understand, Dad. I don't agree with it. But I understand. Can you forgive us? I thought about all the nights, all the whispers, all the candles and symbols and cold kisses on my forehead. There's nothing to forgive. You loved me, both of me. That's all that matters. I stayed in Hollow Creek for 3 more weeks after my mother's funeral. During that time, I cleaned out the house with my father. We sorted through my mother's things. We packed up some items, donated others, threw away what couldn't be saved. And we talked. For the first time in my life, we really talked. My father told me stories about my mother that I'd never heard. How they met at a church social when they were 17. How he fell in love with her instantly, despite her strangeness, or maybe because of it. How he agreed to learn the rituals from my grandmother, even though he didn't fully believe in them, because he loved my mother and would do anything for her. I still don't understand it all, he admitted one night. The spirits, the rituals, the idea that Rose's soul is somehow connected to yours. It goes against everything I was taught to believe, but you did it anyway. Every night for 25 years. Because your mother asked me to. Because she believed. And because I saw things, Lily. Things I couldn't explain. Things that made me think maybe there's more to this world than what we can see. What kind of things? He was quiet for a long moment. When you were a baby, you used to talk in your sleep. But it wasn't baby talk. It was full sentences, complex thoughts. Things a newborn shouldn't know. Like what? Once, when you were about 3 months old, I was holding you in the middle of the night. You opened your eyes, looked right at me, and said, "Tell Mama I'm okay. Tell her the cold isn't so bad. Tell her to stop crying. Your mother had been crying all day. She'd been visiting Rose's grave and came back devastated. She hadn't told me. She hadn't told anyone. But you knew. Somehow, you knew. A chill ran down my spine. That's when I started believing, my father said. Not completely, but enough. Enough to do the ritual every night. Enough to hope that somehow, somewhere, Rose was really there. Before I left Hollow Creek, I made 2 promises. First, I promised my father that I would come back more often, not just twice a year, as much as I could. He was alone now, and he needed me. He also needed to start living again. I convinced him to start coaching Little League again, to visit the neighbors, to remember that there was life beyond grief. Second, I promised Rose that I would carry her with me. I went back to the clearing on my last morning in Vermont. I knelt by her grave and placed my hand on the cold stone. I'm going back to Portland, I said, but I'm not leaving you. You're coming with me. You've always been with me. And now that I know, I'll never forget. I took off my necklace, the half-heart pendant I'd worn since I was 5, and looked at it for a long time. Then I put it back on. We're whole now, Rose. 2 halves of the same heart, just like it was always supposed to be. The wind rustled through the trees, and I could have sworn I heard something. A whisper, soft, almost too quiet to make out. Thank you. That was 3 years ago. I'm 28 now. I still live in Portland. I still work as a graphic designer. I still have the same apartment, the same friends, the same life I built before I knew the truth. But everything is different. I don't wake up at 3 a.m. anymore. But sometimes, when I'm falling asleep, I feel a presence beside me. Not threatening, comforting, like a sister sitting at the edge of my bed, watching over me. I talk to Rose now. Not out loud, that would be weird, but in my head. I tell her about my day. I ask for her advice. I share my fears and hopes and dreams. And sometimes, I swear she answers, not in words. In feelings. In moments of unexpected clarity. In choices that feel right, even when they don't make sense. Rose is with me. She always will be. Last month, I started dating again. His name is Marcus. He's a teacher at a middle school downtown. He has kind eyes, a terrible sense of humor, and absolutely no idea that I carry my dead twin sister's spirit inside me. I'll tell him eventually. Maybe. If things get serious. Or maybe I won't. Maybe some secrets are meant to stay secret. Maybe the bond between sisters doesn't need to be explained to anyone else. I haven't decided yet. My father called last week. Lily, I have news. Good news or bad news? I'm not sure. I've been going through more of your grandmother's things. I found another journal, one she hid separately from the others. What does it say? He paused. It says the ritual wasn't just for you and Rose. It was for all the twins in our family, going back generations. Apparently, every woman in our bloodline who's had twins has had to perform the ritual. What happens if they don't? Another pause. Longer this time. It doesn't say. It just says that the ritual must be performed every night until the surviving twin turns 25. I let that sink in. Dad, are you saying this might happen again? In the future? I'm saying, if you ever have children, Lily, if you ever have twins, you might need to learn the ritual, just in case. I didn't know what to say to that. I still don't. The idea of performing midnight rituals over my own children, of continuing this strange, sacred tradition is overwhelming. Terrifying, even. But also, somehow, beautiful. Because it means the bond continues. The love continues. The connection between sisters, between twins, between souls, continues. Generation after generation, forever. If you're watching this tonight, and you've ever felt like something was missing, if you've ever had dreams about a person you've never met, if you've ever felt a presence beside you that you couldn't explain, maybe you're not alone either. Maybe we all carry someone with us, someone we've lost, someone we never knew, someone who loved us so much they became a part of us. I used to think my parents were crazy. I used to think the rituals were meaningless superstition. I used to think I was a normal girl from a weird family. But I was wrong. I'm not normal. I never was. I'm two sisters in one body. Two hearts beating as one. Two souls sharing a single life. And I wouldn't have it any other way. I went back to Hollow Creek last Halloween. My birthday. Rose's birthday. I visited her grave in the clearing. I brought flowers, pink roses, her namesake. I sat with her until the sun went down. And then, for the first time, I performed the ritual. Not over anyone else. Over myself. I lit a candle. I traced the symbols my mother used to trace. I whispered the words I'd heard 1,000 times but never understood. And I felt something shift. A warmth spreading through my chest. A peace I'd never experienced before. A sense of completion. The ritual was never about protection. It was about connection. About keeping the bond between twins alive across the boundary of death. My parents did it for 25 years because they loved us. Both of us. And now I do it because I love Rose. Because she sacrificed everything for me. Because she deserves to be remembered. I'll keep doing the ritual every year. On our birthday. In that clearing in the woods. And if I ever have twins, if the family pattern continues, I'll teach them the ritual too. I'll tell them about their grandmother, their great-grandmother, all the women in our line who have carried their sisters with them. I'll tell them about Rose, about the sacrifice she made, about the love that transcends death. And I'll tell them they're never alone, that even when they feel like something is missing, someone is always watching over them. Someone who loved them before they took their first breath. Someone who will love them until they take their last. That's what sisters do. Thank you for staying with me. Tonight, this story was hard to tell, but I'm glad I told it, because maybe someone out there needed to hear it. Maybe someone out there has been feeling alone, feeling like something is missing, feeling like they don't quite fit in their own life. You're not alone. You never were. Type "never alone" in the comments if you needed to hear that tonight. Subscribe if you haven't already. Share this with someone who might need it. And remember, the people we lose don't disappear. They become part of us. They live on in our hearts, our choices, our dreams. They're always with us, always. Before I go, I want to read you something. It's a letter I wrote to Rose last year, on our birthday. I never shared it with anyone before, but I think she'd want me to share it now. Dear Rose, I'm 27 today. We're 27 today. I still don't fully understand how this works. How you can be inside me, around me, part of me. How you can be dead and alive at the same time. But I don't need to understand. I just need to feel. And I feel you, Rose. Every single day. You're there when I wake up in the morning. You're there when I'm scared or sad or lost. You're there in the quiet moments, the ones where I used to feel lonely, before I knew you existed. I wish I could have met you, really met you. I wish we could have grown up together, shared clothes, fought over boys, told each other secrets late at night. But we got something else, something different, something maybe even more special. We got to share a life, literally, one body, two souls, moving through the world together. I don't know what happens after death. I don't know if you're in heaven or somewhere else or just here, with me, always. But wherever you are, I hope you know how much I love you. Thank you for saving me. Thank you for choosing me. Thank you for being my sister, even though we never got to hold hands. I'll carry you with me forever, I promise. Happy birthday, Rose. Your sister, Lily.